Emma Fyffe joining me on the Reilly Roundtable. One question I have for you to start this off. Shire wolves. Give me all the dirt on them. Tell me their weaknesses. I'm going to take some notes.
I'm not going to divulge any of that. There's also not a whole lot of dirt on the Shire wolves because they're like a good, righteous sort of team and really the heroes of the entire Schmoedown in my totally unbiased opinion. So
I can't argue with that whatsoever. They are heroes of the Schmoedown. No dirt, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to have to do this, I guess, just the old-fashioned way, which is... well, I guess play the game as best I can. Damn it. Okay, I was really hoping that I would get the dirt out of you.
Listen, it's just because we're in this like intimate podcast studio setting. I totally get it. You thought like you'd catch me with my guard down, but I am steadfast and true, and I will not reveal any of my team's secrets.
And this is why I love Emma Fyffe for being on the Reilly Roundtable. Haven't had you on. Very excited to have you here because we're going to talk about a lot. You know, I wanted to start off with Schmoedown because it's so much fun.
Totally.
We're having a blast. It is revealed. It's who's the boss versus Shire Wolves. That's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be really epic because I mean, it's so funny the way that the whole sort of Anarchy team tournament shook out.
Yeah,
I think that. I mean, obviously, like both you and Ben are extremely strong players, and you have been the Movie Trivia Schmoedown champion before. Sure. But I feel like all of a sudden Ben is a really, really good player, and something about the two of you guys together just worked out.
No one was as surprised as you were, but then as I got to know Ben, I'm like, this makes sense. We fill in some holes.
Definitely.
We work well together.
I think that's very true. I think that you guys have some very different strengths, honestly. I mean, because, which isn't to say, because like you and Clark, for example, were a great team, but you had a lot of similar interests.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of stuff along the sort of horror and comic book movies and fantasy sci-fi kind of stuff. Whereas Ben's way more on the sort of technical side of things, like release dates and Oscar films and things like that.
Just kind of knows it. And he has that mind. And I mean, I think of like Ben and Rachel have very similar strengths.
Too, yeah.
And then, of course, me and Clark.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to go against my my old partner, but we've done it before. It's going to be one of those matches. It's going to be a hell of a match. I can't wait to do it. So thought I could get it out of you. But you know what? We'll talk about some other stuff. We can go into all this stuff. Maybe even a little bit of Luke Skywalker.
Oh, maybe. I do like
Jedi.
to talk about Luke Skywalker.
Okay, so I want to talk about that. Welcome, one and all. It is episode 25. Holy shit, 25 of the Reilly Roundtable. This is a show about movies. This is a show about life. This is a show about movies and life and everything in between. And as you heard in the cold open, one of my favorite people finally joining the roundtable, Emma Fyffe. How are you?
I'm glad to be here. Yeah, it's great. I am a little disappointed that you didn't call this podcast Reilly's Wrong, because I remember when you were telling me that this was going to be a podcast and you were going to basically have your own thing going on the Collider podcasts. And it was you, me, and Tom Dagnino, and we were all talking about it after one of the Schmoedown live events. We were like out having a drink. And you're like, oh, I'm going to have a podcast. You got to come be on my podcast, and we were joking that it should have just been called Reilly's Wrong because we just get yelled at all to about how our opinions are incorrect.
It would make sense. Other titles I was thinking about: Reilly's Wrong, Reilly's a shill, Reilly doesn't know what he's talking about, Reilly eats shit and go away. These were some of the things I've received.
I think Roundtable, is maybe a little bit of a better title than Eat Shit and Go Away.
Yeah, it's a better title. I just need a round table.
Yeah,
right
this
now,
is definitely a rectangular
table.
If we took this little extension off the end, it would be kind of a square table.
Yeah,
but...
yeah. So the Reilly Square table. Okay, I'm going to rebrand this, get some more graphics,
need a new logo,
and all that stuff.
Yes.
So but I'm so glad to have you here because so much I want to talk about with you. I mean, I want to start because what I love about my job in particular is how I get to meet all these great people. Because I've known you for at least a couple years.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, and for me, you came in on the Schmoes Know show, and immediately I was like, yeah, she's cool.
Oh, thanks.
Well, how did you come out to LA? I don't think I've ever asked this.
I feel like I haven't talked too much about sort of my journey to getting to LA in the first place. I've talked a lot about how I became involved in the Schmoedown, but in terms of LA, so I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in Connecticut, right on the New York State border, in Fairfield County, which is right on the border of Westchester County, New York. And I went to college in Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley. I went to James Madison University.
Very nice.
And it was such a weird set of circumstances that even brought me there, where basically when I was applying for schools, I applied to JMU essentially on a whim because they had a good music school, and I went to school for musical theater. And
we got to talk about that.
Yeah.
I grew up in musical theater.
Oh, okay.
But please continue.
So I was going to school for musical theater, and so when I was applying to schools, I was mostly looking at conservatory programs, and just randomly also decided to apply to JMU because I think a girl who I had done theater with and I'd done dance and stuff with outside of my own school, she lived in the town like on the border of ours in Newtown, Connecticut. And so she went to JMU, and like the older sisters of some of the girls that were my year in school in Bethel also were there, and they all loved it.
Oh, cool.
So I just kind of randomly applied there, and then it shook out in such a way that I didn't get into any of my top choice schools, but in the end, I mean, they say that everything happens for a reason, and honestly, that was a good thing because I would have been miserable in a conservatory. Oh, God. I would have hated it. It's kind of like when you talk about Harry Potter and you talk about the Sorting Hat, and all of the characters in Harry Potter are sorted into the houses that maybe don't necessarily fundamentally represent who they might be, but the house that's going to be best for them. So I like to take the examples of like Neville Longbottom and Hermione Granger. So Neville very easily could have been in Hufflepuff. He's so loyal, he's so good, he's so pure. And Hermione seems like she has Ravenclaw written all over her, being such a brainiac. But Hermione would have driven herself crazy in Ravenclaw.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
I'm actually happy that I could hang with that conversation.
Yeah,
I'm lesser known between you and I would say Rachel and the Harry Potter fans. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan.
Yeah.
I love them. The books especially.
Totally.
They're my favorite.
So, so
I
I
got to hang with the Harry Potter conversation.
Exactly.
I know when you said Hermione, I'm like, well, she sounds like a
totally
Ravenclaw.
a Ravenclaw, right?
Yeah.
But again, if she'd been in Ravenclaw, she would have been miserable. She wouldn't have become a well-rounded person.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big thing for me about going to JMU, which was a big public university.
Yeah.
That it was great because I was in this small department that I really thrived in the theater and dance department there.
Nice.
And I got to do all kinds of stuff. And one of the things that I really appreciated about that program that I feel like a lot of conservatory programs don't put this much of an emphasis on is the student theater. So when I was in school, our student theater was as much a part of the program as any of the main stage shows.
Oh, that's great.
And I directed a show my junior year of college. I directed Andrew Lippa's The Wild Party, and my friend Katie directed the LaCusa version. So we did them as sort of like an event for the season.
Oh, man.
Because in one year there were two musicals based on the same poem from the 1920s.
I love that.
Yeah.
USC is where I went, and I did kind of a similar thing. Well, I auditioned at UCLA, USC, New York University, Boston University. I did a lot of those things, but I was always circling UCLA for some reason, and I think for me it was because I just saw the neighborhood, and I was like, there's more to do there.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's cute over there.
It's cute over there, right. And the theater program for me sounded a lot better. But I did audition at USC as well. I had the family history there and all that kind of stuff. Well, UCLA didn't work out.
Yeah.
Didn't get in. They didn't like me. So I'm like, you know what? F you. I'm going to USC. USC liked me. But it was the BFA program. And I got in. But then I looked at it and I went, it's nothing but theater.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But it was so, I didn't feel like I was going to be, it felt conservatory. It felt like just really, really hardcore. So I switched over to BA.
Yeah.
did a cinema minor, and that was just it.
Totally.
So,
I have a BA in theater and dance. So, and it was totally the way to go for me because in addition to, again, being really involved in this department in so many different aspects. And, you know, one of the things that we had to do in order to graduate was do 4 practicums, and only one of your practicums could be acting. So I did, I think my second semester freshman year, I did a lighting practicum. So I learned all about hanging lights, and I'd get up on the catwalk in the grid and hang lighting units. And I ran the light board for a show.
That's really, we would do crew, so we would be behind scenes. And all,
and then I worked in the scene shop and also in the costume shop. And during the time that I was in the scene shop, the guy who was sort of who was the set designer for a production of Twelfth Night that we were doing, he had a cinema background.
I did 12th Night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we'll
That's
talk about
awesome.
that. This is so cool.
So he had a cinema background. So and specifically actually like television set design, production kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I, learned to make stuff out of plastic and plywood, and the whole set maybe weighed 20 pounds, even though it looked like this beautiful, like, Cuban villa or whatever.
I love that.
Yeah.
Did you ever think that would come in handy for Schmodown entrances?
I really didn't. I really did not. But, here we are.
Here we are. That's so amazing. I didn't know it was musical theater kind of. What are some of the plays that you've done? You mentioned 12th Night.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. So when I was in school,
because we got to compare notes on this.
Okay, so I was talking about how our student theater was a big part of our theater program.
Sure.
So my first semester freshman year, I was in a gender-blind production of 1776.
Oh, Lord.
During which our director figured out that he hated directing.
Oh my God! This sounds like my director from Guys and Dolls.
Oh no way! I did Guys and Dolls in high school.
Yeah, I did. Oh my God, we got to compare notes. Yeah, I got into musical theater, children's theater.
Okay,
which kind of that's what bit me. Because I wanted to be an actor at one point, but then it turned to writing throughout the cinema school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was doing West Side Story.
Okay.
Grease.
Yep. I was in Grease in high school.
I think everybody's done Grease. I mean, you should
It's so
do
funny
Grease.
because I was so everyone was so excited that we were doing Grease, and I was so whatever about it because I was definitely going through a musical theater hipster phase. Like I would have preferred we did some Sondheim or something.
Right. Yeah.
Which I did end up doing Sondheim in college. I was April in Company.
Okay.
Which is one of the girlfriends. She's the real dumb one who's a flight attendant. It was really fun. But when we did Grease in high school, I didn't care. I didn't want to do it. I was like, whatever. I guess it's fine. And I wanted to play Rizzo, which is the part that I got. And
you are a great Rizzo.
And it ended up being so much fun.
Yeah.
To this day, I don't know if I'd ever go see Grease performed, but I would be in it again in a heartbeat because it's a really fun show to be in.
It's such a fun show. When I did it, we did it for the children's theater, and per children's theater, everybody gets a chance. And
of course, yes.
This was at my awkward stage where I was like on that cusp of I had hit puberty, but I had no idea what this voice. So in their infinite wisdom, they gave me Danny Zuko. And sure, I could hit Summer Nights.
Sure.
Easy.
No problem.
That was right in the range.
Yeah.
But then they decided, and I don't know if you did the version of Grease that's like the stage play where they're not the T-Birds or the Burger Palace Boys.
Yes, we did the stage version. Yep.
Okay. We did the stage version as well, but we also incorporated movies from songs from the movie.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty typical these days.
Here comes Sandy when he's singing in the drive-in in the movie. Now, I could not hit those notes.
Oh, yeah.
So right at that part where he goes, Sandy, and
my God.
he goes up.
What a bummer, because the song that he sings in the original stage show is much more comedic.
Yes.
So you could have totally pulled it off.
I know, but they got rid of that, and they did Sandy, so I had to go down to my baritone in order to get through it. And I wish I could show you. I wish I could show the audience
That's
right
so
now
great.
on the TV where it's just like, oh, Sandy, baby, someday. And you could see on my face just how awkward I am. And it's like,
hilarious.
My director is just so wonderful, Dana Hanstein, who still runs my art to this day. I highly recommend for anybody who has kids out there. They're down in Orange County, my art, if you want to check it out. But she's like, you're doing good. You're starting to feel your voice. And I'm like, I ain't feeling shit. I was so upset because I was so embarrassed. And then, but the other thing they would cast us in other parts and we would rotate.
Oh, okay, I see.
So I played Roger.
Oh, yeah.
And I did mooning.
Yeah.
And that's when I could use, and mooning is a high one too.
It is, yes.
But that one I could make fun of.
Yeah, but it's a cute, funny song. So there's a scene in Grease. So basically, there's the sleepover scene in the play of Grease. They're all at Marty's house having a sleepover.
Right.
And in it, like Rizzo sneaks out in the middle of the night to go hang out with the Burger Palace boys.
Oh yeah, all of them, right?
Because like Grease lightning happens, and then she shows up at the end of the song, basically.
Right.
And so I had to climb out a window to like leave the stage, and it was really cool. We had like a window that I could actually climb through. Well, the problem is they built the window a little too high for me to get to from the ground.
Oh no.
So they ended up putting a like step stool there, except it wasn't a step stool. It was a very precarious like apple box.
Oh no.
So during dress rehearsals, it had been totally fine. I managed to balance on it, get through the window, no problem. It didn't even occur to me that it really wasn't made to support my weight.
Oh shit.
Because I think it wasn't even really an apple box. It was meant to like display ceramics.
Yes.
So on opening night, I stepped on the box and it fell apart.
Oh no.
And I just crashed into the flat that the window was on. And then stupidly, instead of just going, screw it, I'm just going to exit stage right or whatever, I tried to like balance on the little part of the box.
No.
That
It
was
just
still
kept going.
There. Yeah.
Just kept getting
it
worse.
was like a Three Stooges bit.
That's so funny. Do you have any other stories like that? This is great. I love finding this connection through musical theater.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's like the main. Oh my gosh. Okay. So kind of moving on to my professional theater career.
Okay.
So when I graduated from college, I worked for a company called Missoula Children's Theater for a number of years. It's a touring children's theater company based out of Missoula, Montana.
Nice.
And I remember it was some little town in Washington when I was touring with Little Mermaid. So the way that Missoula basically works is all of their shows are written to have a cast of like 40 to 50 kids optimally.
Yeah.
And then one adult part.
Okay.
And sometimes as the adult, and it's just you and your tour partner, and you guys switch off like who's in the show and who's sort of the primary director on the show.
Right.
And sometimes the adult plays multiple parts. Sometimes the adult plays just one part.
This is very similar to my art. Yeah,
Well,
I came in later as an adult,
exactly.
like guest artist. So
Yeah, and in Little Mermaid, you played 3 parts. You played the mom or the dad, depending on if you were a boy or girl.
Right.
You played the royal marriage broker, but sometimes you could give that role away to a really funny, strong kid, which she's like a Yenta kind of character.
Okay.
And then you played a starfish. Yep, I wore a and a cowboy starfish, by the way.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So in it, though, because there's no like evil sea witch, there's just a magical cowboy starfish that runs around with a bunch of seahorses who are the 5 to 6 year old kids.
Okay. I have an idea for a movie.
Yep.
Okay. It's a cowboy starfish.
Cowboy starfish.
Holy shit.
And so, the starfish is the one that basically turns the Little Mermaid, whose name is Celia in this version of the story, into a person so she can go win the love of Prince Perfect.
Right.
But of course, Prince Perfect is totally self-absorbed, and she should have just been in love with her next door neighbor the whole time.
Right.
That's the moral of this story.
Oh, God. That's hysterical.
But anyway, so the kid who was playing Prince Perfect in this particular production skipped over like 2 pages of dialogue, including the line that was the cue for the like oldest kid characters who were the scouts, who were sort of the narrators that came in and out of the story, to change the set.
Oh no.
So he like skipped to the point that we were all being like thrown back into the ocean. So I'm like saying all the starfish's lines while like throwing the throne out of the way and all the boxes and the trees and switching them around to be seaweed again. And these 2 like scouts come out on stage and look at me like, what do we do? Did we miss something?
God,
it's so funny.
You guys, this is something we stumbled on this, which I love. The live theater is something that I wish everybody could experience.
Really glorious.
It is glorious. There is nothing like the positives. There's nothing like getting out there in front of friends, family, what have you.
Yeah.
The lights, knowing there's an audience. And then what happens when something goes wrong?
I just remembered another Missoula story.
Oh, shit. Okay. I got to tell you this one because you'll get it.
Yeah.
So guest artist again, doing my art. I'm playing Fagin and Oliver.
Perfect.
And again, to your point of, make sure there's a lot of kids and like we're getting the kids and the parents are so excited.
Yeah.
Pick a pocket or two.
Yep.
Big number in Oliver, right? Where
Great song.
we have great song. Fagin is getting all of the kids involved.
Yeah.
We have choreography. I do this. I bow. Somebody takes the handkerchief and it goes around to the kids and I'm singing and I'm dancing and the kids are doing this dancing and everything. Well, this was one of the first times where Meyer decided, you know what, we can't, and this happens with nonprofit. We couldn't afford a live orchestra. So we were doing
such a bummer.
We were doing the pre-tape or the tape.
Yep.
So they would play it. That thing cut out in the middle of the song.
No.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh shit. Okay, so I'm up there, and I kind of, for dramatic effect, I kind of walk and I go, well, I guess it's not really working. I'm not Johnny Depp. I don't know why that came out that way. I can't remember how it was.
Captain Jack Sparrow for a second.
I just tied in there. It was way before Captain Jack Sparrow ever came to be. But so I was trying to wait for them to get it, but then they just started playing it again, and then it cuts out, and God, the audience is sitting there, and I'm like, damn it, all these kids had all of this choreography, so I basically went through it, the whole thing, so the kids could have their moment.
Aww.
Trying to sing, it was probably the biggest train wreck I've ever been a part of, but at the end, my director again comes to me and goes, oh, sorry. I'm like, hey, you know what? Shit happens. So what's your next one? This is too fun.
When I was doing Rumpelstiltskin, another show I was doing with Missoula, the tour actor played the narrator, the minstrel.
Okay.
So I had like a little backpacker guitar that I played and sang these little incidental narration-y kind of parts.
Sure.
So there's this great song towards the end of it where everyone's trying to guess what Rumpelstiltskin's name is because that's the whole point of it.
The whole point,
and so
right.
they go through the whole alphabet, like trying to guess what the name is. It's a really great number. Well, apparently one of the villagers threw up during this number, just like all over the stage. And so as they're running off stage, one of the other villagers like grabs me by the arm of my like long whatever tunic and is like, so-and-so threw up on stage. And so I go backstage and I'm like, Mandy, who was my tour partner at the time, who was like the primary director that week, I was like, Mandy, give me a mop. And so she gets me a mop. And so I go out and do my little, fortunately it was a little narration part coming up. So I go out on stage and I'm singing my narration, but instead of playing the guitar, I just like mopped up the stage.
Folks, that's what's called improvisation and making a mountain out of a molehill, I guess. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I could talk about like musical theater and that stuff. I could go into the last one for me. I was action in West Side Story.
Oh yeah.
In West Side Story, in the movie, Riff sings Geoff Krupke, but after the act of the intermission.
Yes.
Sorry, action sings it.
Yes.
But right before that is the Rumble.
Yeah.
I actually got punched.
Oh no.
He missed the fight choreography. Broke my nose. Blood sprayed the first row of the audience. Literally, I remember getting punched, and then I was like, "Ow, that hurt!" And I remember looking up, and like three women, like mothers, are sitting there, and they're doing that, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" And I ran off, and then they clicked it back into place, put tape on, and I went out the next one and sang Geoff Krupke.
That's so funny.
Live theater.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's so interesting because in those stories, so you go over to Montana. You said Montana?
Montana, yeah. I
Wow.
didn't really live anywhere for about 2.5 years when I graduated from college because I was mostly on tour.
Right. With the same company.
With the same company, yeah.
That's
They're
fantastic.
based out of Missoula, Montana, but I only spent maybe like 6 weeks out of every year in Missoula, which Missoula's a really rad little city, by the way.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. It's where the University of Montana is. It's not big, but the way I talk about it is there's also not a lot of bullshit. Like, you don't have to dig through a bunch of crap to find the good stuff because it's all pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds like the kind of place that Ken Knapsack and I want to go and escape and open up a general store because, you
guys would kill it in Missoula. And honestly, when I first started on tour, I had such a good experience working there, and I still have a great relationship with them to this day. There was a time when I was first working for them where I thought, man, I think I just want to like get a job in the home office at Missoula and kind of like run the tours from the home front and do their awesome community theater because they have they put so much money into their community theater productions.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And I was like, oh, that'd be so nice. And then after being on the road for a little while after that, and then my last summer, because they do a lot of work with the U.S. military.
Oh,
so they send
this organization.
Yeah,
sounds
they're
fantastic.
awesome. They're super awesome. Can't recommend them enough. There's actually a documentary about the company called Little Red Truck because we drove around the country in red pickup trucks.
Oh my God!
But because they did a lot of work with the military, they also specifically did a lot of work with the overseas military bases.
Oh wow!
So I spent my last summer mostly in Japan, and then I was in South Korea in Seoul for a week, and then also in Shanghai, China.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Some of these stories you're telling me, it just like things are clicking into place on like kind of what I know of Emma Fyffe.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So then after,
so after Missoula, so basically during my during my first winter-spring tour, I was with my tour partner at the time, this guy Brendan, who's still a good friend of mine. He lives up in Seattle and runs like a theater company up there and does drag, and it's just fabulous. But anyway, so we were driving from one side of Washington State to the other. I spent a lot of time in the Pacific Northwest, but I was also in Canada a fair amount, in British Columbia. And yeah, I mean, there's only like 7 states I haven't been to, quite honestly. So I was all over the place.
Yeah,
but
that's great.
We were driving across the state of Washington, and when you're driving from like Spokane to Seattle, you have to drive over Snoqualmie Mountain Pass.
Okay.
And there was a blizzard.
Oh.
So I drove over the mountain pass with chains on the tires of our truck.
Oh.
And I decided I never needed to see snow again.
That's as good a reason as any to come out to LA, right?
And
California.
So, and also I realized that, because I grew up only an hour outside New York City, so I always thought, I'll go to New York and I'll like get a job bartending, and I'm a licensed bartender and do theater. But I kind of realized after being on tour for 2.5 years with a company that really took very good care of us.
Yeah, sounds it.
That I would just be auditioning for more regional theater and touring jobs, and I kind of wanted to live somewhere.
Yeah.
So I came to LA.
Yourself.
Yeah, and so I came to LA being like, well, I've got a lot of different skills that are relevant to the entertainment industry. I'm sure I can find a job.
Yes, and you have.
Yeah, definitely.
So when was that? When was LA your first year?
2010. I moved
2010?
here, October of 2010. So I've been here a little over 8 years.
You're a native now.
Yeah,
You've been
totally
here long enough, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you feel that way too.
I really do. I was really fortunate that when I moved out here, my good friend from college, Lisa, lived across the street from UCB on Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
The one that's like right on Franklin and Bronson. Yeah. So I started going to shows there and kind of becoming friends with people in that community basically right away. I mean, like I've been friends with Hal Rudnick since I moved to LA, basically.
Oh my God. So you've known him the longest.
I've known him the longest. Yeah. I've known him a really long time.
God, it can be such a small world sometimes. Well, that's amazing. So you've been out here for 8 years now, and so I know musical theater, but is it acting?
I know.
Is it
it's so funny.
All of it?
It's kind of all of it. It's always kind of been all of it. That was something that I really realized in college that after I directed a show, and it was like so much of my heart and soul that I put into it.
Yeah.
That I kind of realized that I liked a lot more than just acting. I also costume designed several shows, including a main stage show when I was in college.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
So I kind of came out here being like, I don't know, I'll figure it out. And sure, I did what everybody does in LA, and I went to some of those like casting director workshops and stuff pretty early on, and kind of realized in that process that I maybe wasn't going to be an actor because there were so many people there that I could tell that was all they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'd say no to an acting job. And I feel like lately, since I've gotten into the world of streaming tabletop role-playing games, that kind of scratches that acting itch and also fulfills me as an improviser in a way that just like doing improv shows at 11 o'clock at night for just the other people that were doing shows that night didn't.
Yeah. Well, we do improv and Schmodown.
Oh, yeah, totally.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of that.
And that was the thing that I kind of realized. Because, you know, I went through all the courses at UCB, and I also took 2 levels of musical improv, which has come into play in some of the tabletop role-playing stuff I've done, where we'll do, like, musical episodes of things. And
That's
so we'll
amazing.
improvise songs.
Wow.
But I just kind of realized that I liked improv and I liked that I had that skill. But I had so many friends at the time that all they wanted in the world was to be on a Herald team at UCB.
Okay.
Herald teams are the house, like, improv teams. Herald is just a format of improv for anybody that doesn't know.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't know.
So,
I had heard of it.
Yeah. But I went, this is not the be all and end all for me.
I wanted to put an application.
Oh,
What?
are you wanting to join the
are you putting in a-
John
an
Roca.
application?
Matches. They win matches. I love the fight.
It's true.
Oh
we do
my
win
God.
matches.
Literally interrupting my podcast.
He's wearing the hat.
Wearing the hat. I guess the limelight was off of John Roca
It's true.
for that amount of time.
He's like, people have stopped paying attention to me for more than 25 seconds, so I gotta get back in there.
I'm sure everybody will enjoy that. Motherfuckers, stay out now from now on.
Yeah.
So the next question I had about the LA experience is, how did you get into AfterBuzz, where we officially
That's true.
met?
So basically, So I went through a couple different kind of jobs when I first moved to LA. Eventually ended up at Universal as a tour guide, which I still work at Universal to this day. And I was so happy to have this job that I really liked.
Yeah.
And so I hit that job pretty hard for the first couple of years and built up enough hours and seniority that now I can really kind of make that job work for me.
Yeah.
And about probably a little over a year into, or maybe it was like about a year and a half maybe into working at Universal, I had auditioned for a show that Wizard World, like the convention company, they were planning on doing some like sort of, I don't know if it was a streaming show or a behind the scenes show. The point of the matter is it never actually ended up happening.
Yeah. That happens a lot in LA.
It does. It happens a lot in LA.
Yeah.
So I went in and auditioned, and I had done some hosting work before that. I had hosted there was this company called Buzz Media. I don't even know if they're around anymore. It's not BuzzFeed. It's totally different. And they had a bunch of different blogs, basically.
Yeah.
And so they were doing this video game show for one of their blogs.
Perfect.
And they only did it for, I think we did a total of like 3 episodes maybe.
Okay.
But I did host a segment on it, and then it just kind of fizzled away.
Yeah. Again, happens in LA.
Totally happens all the time in LA. But I had enjoyed doing that, and so when I went and auditioned for this, and the people that were, doing the audition process, they're like, "Oh man, you're really good."
Yeah.
And that kind of reminded me, oh yeah, I kind of like doing this.
Yeah.
So I decided then with a couple of my friends to do a like YouTube show where the problem was, as many shows run into, we didn't really have any direction other than, hey, we're girls and we like nerdy stuff and we want to talk about it with a girl perspective.
Yeah.
And what I was finding, because this was like 2014, so internet attention spans were still really short in 2014.
Yeah, we can see that now, like, because we've, obviously we do long form here mostly, I would say, and the short term is a little bit less. So so I hear what you're saying.
But so in 2014 it was hard to get anybody to watch anything that was over 5 minutes, and we weren't anybody. So I was having a really hard time editing these episodes down to under 10 minutes. And eventually decided, I think the thing that's most interesting about what we're doing are our long discussions.
Yeah.
So let's just switch to doing a podcast.
Perfect. Yeah.
And so at the time, the new Sailor Moon series was coming out, Sailor Moon Crystal, which is a more direct adaptation of the manga, the comic that Sailor Moon that all Sailor Moon was inspired by. And so we ended up doing a podcast where we basically like got really in depth comparing all the different versions of Sailor Moon that have been from the beginning through to, well, the point that Sailor Moon Crystal kind of stopped making episodes.
Okay.
And when we were doing that, we were having so much fun, and I really wanted to get more eyes on our stuff, or more ears on it. It's not a video, it's just a podcast.
Right.
So I had some girls who I worked with at Universal who were doing shows over at AfterBuzz.
There it is.
Including two girls that had been in my tram training class. One of them wasn't even working at Universal anymore at that point. She was doing AfterBuzz and a bunch of other sort of like she was really like a news broadcaster, and I think she lives in like Boston now and does that full time.
Okay, got it.
But so I decided, I'd like to get involved in AfterBuzz. That seems cool. And so basically they connected me with the people over there, and I went to an orientation, and then I think maybe a few weeks later, the sci-fi series Face Off came back, and I started to do the after show for that show. And because that was a show where the people on it were not already famous, anybody that was local to LA wanted to come be on our show.
That's really cool.
So it was really neat because right off the bat, I started to get experience interviewing people that had actually worked on the show that we were talking about. And that also helped to get eyes on it from our perspective, from AfterBuzz's perspective.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then there was one week where one of the hosts for the Sailor Moon Crystal after show couldn't make it, and so I got a message from Kari Takei, who was she was hosting it at the time, and she was like, hey, our mutual friend Daniel said that you know a lot about Sailor Moon. I really need another host for this day. Can you do it? And I was like, absolutely, yes, I will be there. And then I was basically on the show forever after that.
That's great.
I had already become friends with some people who were working on the new dub of the show that Viz Media was doing, and so I sort of got integrated into that whole professional anime world pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I know that about you. I know zero, so it's like
cool.
I love hearing it from you.
Yeah.
And wow, so that's like you landing in AfterBuzz, and then around that time, or not around that time, when did you finally come on Schmoes, or how did that work out? Because I didn't produce or anything. The old Schmoes show.
I remember you guys being in the old studio, and I really came onto the show in the first place because of Ken Knapsack, and in turn, really because of Joseph Scrimshaw.
Oh yeah,
because Popcorn Talk, because Joseph was hosting. Ken had just recently left.
Jedi
Alliance.
Jedi Alliance. Yep.
I was like, what was their Star Wars show
I always
called?
say Jedi Council now. Obvious reasons.
Ken had recently left Jedi Alliance, but Joseph was hosting it.
He stayed on for a while.
Yeah, he stayed on for a while. It was him and Mark Donica, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was Donica.
And basically, they were doing an episode about Star Wars Rebels, and I was hosting the Star Wars Rebels after show at the time. And so Joseph was like, hey, why don't you come on the show?
Perfect.
And we had a great time. And then Joseph was like, well, you need to come do Force Center.
Yeah.
And so that all happened. And then Ken was doing stuff over at Screen Junkies and like brought me on to do that. And then eventually when Ken came over to Collider, he was like, hey, I want to get you in touch with Christian. And so Christian reached out to me and was like, yo, Ken says you're great.
Yeah.
Come do stuff with us.
Yeah. Then the rest is history.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I remember around the first time he came on Schmoes No, and I said it at the top of the show, be like, yeah, she's cool. Yeah. And then I say the rest is history because here we are.
I know.
I mean, it's like you're now a staple.
Well, I mean, I was on TV Talk, I think the Monday after I did Schmoes the first time. So
there was something interesting, in that time because I do remember now. For some reason, I thought it was Ellis, but it was Ken that introduced you to us.
Yes,
and it was immediate. Your first appearance, everybody was like, "Yeah, we got to get him on this now. We got to get him on this now because you were so well spoken. You were a great host, and I can bring all that back to musical theater.
Yeah,
I really can because it's something that I identify with because it gave me a lot of confidence finally because I was a nerdy kid and I was just kind of unsure of myself. And then when I finally sang "If I Only Had a Brain," for my first children's theater thing, and the director's like, no, you have to sing. And I'm like, wait a minute, I came out here. I know I have a crush on her. That's why I did musical theater. I followed this girl that I had a crush on. Yeah, this was middle school, like. Hi, and the rest is history.
That reminds me of my buddy Dan growing up. I remember when we were doing a chorus line right after I graduated from high school, so I was going into college, and I remember him saying something to the effect of because he was such a sort of bro.
Yeah.
But he took dance class with us, and he's a super cool guy. And there were other guys that would ask him, they're like, dude, why are you doing musical theater? He's like, because all my friends are super cool, hot chicks.
Yeah, that's I guess the perks for dudes. Yeah, I mean, I was shocked because it was my sister who did Annie, and
my God.
And for this musical theater program that I was telling you about, and so I came on to my dog Ernie at the time was Sandy in Annie,
Amazing.
so I would just hang backstage and throw a biscuit across the stage, and there my dog would go, and then I met this girl sitting there, and I just had the most major crush on her, and I'm like, yeah, if I go and do Wizard of Oz next with her. I'm going to be... Never dated her in my life. Nothing ever happened.
No.
I ended up meeting my high school girlfriend years later in there, but that's just so funny.
Yeah.
How some dudes, I mean, my high school guys, a bunch of my dear high school friends that I still keep in touch with.
Sure.
We all did Grease. We all did the Pink Panther Strikes Again was one of our senior plays in high school. But head of the football team, and this guy was a surfer from Orange County, so he was a total,
of
hey,
course.
bro, what's up, bro? And he was and I tell him to his face, he's such a knucklehead. He was just this we're gonna go egg things. I'm like, dude, come on. And then he finally grew up, and he grew up in the theater because he would it locked him in somehow. And that's what I love about musical theater. It does give you, I don't know, a foundation. Yeah. It really it challenges you, and that's why I said it.
Oh yeah,
if you
definitely.
want to do musical theaters, I highly recommend. There's
highly recommend it at any level, community theater, school programs, whatever you can do. It's just, I think it's so important for a person's development, and it has nothing to do with being talented or good at theater. It just has to do with you building that confidence to deal with things that are unexpected. I remember when I was really little and first starting to get into theater, my mom was so worried because I was such a sensitive kid.
Oh, God.
She thought, oh, my God, if something goes wrong, what is she going to do?
Right.
And stuff would go wrong on stage, and I would totally shrug it off, improvise my way through it.
There's something about it. There's something about being put in the lights and you're in front of a crowd. You're either going to sink or swim. And I think it's like the mother bird throwing the kid out.
Definitely.
Fly or not, you're good. Well, you made it. Okay, good.
Well, and that was, again, to bring it back to my college experience, that was definitely the big thing about the student theater was we didn't get a whole lot of supervision. Basically, we had to put together a proposal with a creative team and a budget, and basically pitch your show to the faculty.
Oh, wow. Oh, God, that must have been nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it sure was.
Yeah.
And then the faculty basically approved it or not. And the semester that I was pitching my show, there were too many shows being pitched, so they weren't going to be able to do all of them.
Okay.
And fortunately, mine passed. I was somewhere solidly in the middle, I think.
Perfect.
And the only reason I was solidly in the middle because my show was really expensive because it was a musical, so we had to pay to get the rights to it.
Yeah. It's musicals are they're a beast.
and pay an orchestra. We had a live orchestra. It was amazing.
Oh, yeah. I've done the live orchestra. I did 3 Penny Opera at college. Guys and Dolls at college. And the live, that's another thing that I loved. When you walk out there and that orchestra's playing with you, you're like, all right.
It's so dope.
It's so much fun. But I love hearing that journey, especially getting to AfterBuzz and Rebels and the after show and then joining all of this. And, some of the questions I have, because, you're a hostess, you're an actress, you're musical theater, you work at Universal Studios. It's what are some of your struggles in dealing with the landscape here?
Oh, man. Well,
because it's, we are in a time now where it's we need you guys to succeed, all of us to succeed and open doors and all this stuff. But yet we're hearing on social media just nonsense sometimes. How do you deal with that nonsense? Because you seem so confident.
Thank you.
Are pardon my French, you're I don't give a fuck. That's what it sounds like. That's what it feels like
That
from your
happened
energy.
once I turned 30.
There it is.
Yeah, once you turn 30, you stop caring. So for any of you who are younger than that and you feel like every little thing is upsetting you, don't worry. I was the same way. But the older I get, the more I just go, fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I would go down that rabbit hole too.
And the other thing is, I think for me, it's like I was fortunate to come into this space at such a time when we already were aware that YouTube comments were a scary place to go.
Right. Okay.
So I just do not read YouTube comments.
Nope. Me neither.
I'm not even tempted to read them. I don't have a Facebook, which is so nice.
I always forget you don't have a Facebook when I'm inviting you to my ugly sweater
yes.
party. Because
but thank you for the email.
that's why I'm like, I better email some peeps.
No, I appreciated
the
that.
Facebook. I know. I told my fiance Julie. She's like, "Well, I'm doing the party." I'm like, "Let's not do it on Facebook right now. Let's do
just
the
do an email."
But she did the Facebook.
It's all right.
It still works.
No, it totally works.
Well, that's commendable because especially sometimes with Schmodown. In particular, you can see the comments really get to some of the competitors.
It's so true, and you know, and it makes me sad when that happens to see like the shit that people give Clark and Rachel. And I mean, Clark is somebody that, like myself, has been in this game a long time.
Yeah, I don't see it bothering Clark
and
that
wants
much.
that wants to do this for a career.
Right.
Rachel's an editor.
Yeah. Yes, and it does affect her. Yeah,
it does.
Because I've known Rachel probably the longest out of a lot of people here because she was writing for Schmoes Know for
right.
back in the day, who was introduced through Christian because of The Bachelor. So I've always just really she's been one of my favorite people where I'm just like, if you fucking go after Rachel, I'm gonna kill you.
Me too.
I take offense to that shit.
Because I mean, she's so smart and she's so talented and she's somebody that in the Schmodown and in everything that she does in terms of her on-camera work really just wants to celebrate her love of movies.
Yep, that's it. Just so I know there's a wrestling angle to it, but
sure, and the wrestling angle is fun.
That's fun, and I've seen comments where it's like, you get it, you get the wrestling angle,
totally.
But then I've seen those where it's like, you're a troll.
No, absolutely.
Stop.
It's so true, and there are people that absolutely get the wrestling angle that are like, fans of like Tom Dagnino, who but they know that like Tom in real life is not Finstock,
Tom has become one of my dearest friends, and through this weird thing that happened, Tom was my wingman on my second date with my future fiance. So he's known Julie as long as I have. And then his girlfriend has become really close with
love
Julie.
Erica.
And
She's
Erica
so awesome.
Keeps him in line.
She does.
It's incredible. Yeah. It's amazing. So I love that. But it's interesting because the social media, I kind of want to hone in on something that we wanted to talk about because you were the after show with Rebels and there is a fandom on social media.
That's not always super nice.
That's not super nice. I just put out the latest Rule of Two, which is the spinoff of Jedi Council that I do. And we asked the question, what would have the sequels looked like if George Lucas was involved? I thought that would have been a fun conversation. It is. It's a great
fun conversation.
It was a wonderful episode. It's one of my favorite episodes as of late.
Yeah.
But immediately on Twitter, I mean, that thing goes out there. And
I also don't think that it would be as like almighty superhero Luke Skywalker as some people think that it would.
Right.
Because
it's what's so interesting about that is that some of the storyboards from Lucas and Arndt's version of the sequel trilogy had Luke on the island. Had him not, and we don't know the circumstances.
Sure.
If he was a hermit, gave up, what have you, but we knew he was on an island, and there was a female character that went seeking him out. So
great.
This
sounds like Force Awakens.
Yeah, Force Awakens sounds very similar. Now I bet it kind of went off from there. We don't know. I thought it was a fun conversation, but. Yeah, the level of it's getting to a point where Star Wars and I'm being careful here. I don't. There are people that come after me that say you're clumping all Star Wars fans in that. No, I'm not.
No, we're not. We're definitely not because
you know who you are.
Oh yeah, and I've interacted with so many fans because there was some time where somebody put out a tweet that was like, tweet your most controversial Star Wars opinion, and I quote tweeted it with Last Jedi Luke Skywalker is Beth Luke Skywalker.
I love that. That's what I wanted to talk about because I've never experienced. So we were working on something TBD, guys, but stay tuned. It's going to be
you'll
fun.
See it.
Oh, gee, I wonder if it's Star Wars related since we're talking Star Wars. But you said a few things where I just kind of leaned back and I went, "Holy shit, we haven't really talked about this because." I'm of the same opinion. Now, okay, Luke Skywalker is the best Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. You know, I grew up with the original trilogy.
Sure, so did I.
I wouldn't say no to that, but I like to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I've always said that when I walked out of The Last Jedi, I was profoundly affected by Luke.
Oh, yeah.
In particular, on what he did.
Well, I mean, Mark Hamill gives such a strong performance in that film because he's playing a character who I thought was a wonderful example that was showing the dangers of putting somebody on a pedestal.
God, yes. Continue, please.
Which is basically that, okay, so end of Return of the Jedi, not really, I mean, Luke is integral in bringing down the Emperor, though, frankly, it's not all him that ends the reign of the Empire and starts the new time of freedom. And totally.
Anakin Skywalker finally came back.
And let's not forget all the stuff that Leia and Han and everybody did off on the ground on Endor at the battle.
Absolutely. It was a team effort.
It's a team effort.
Yes.
But what you get out of that is basically you have Leia in a position of, okay, I know who I am, what I am, but at that point, she'd already gotten so deep into this life of politics and the world now had completely changed because they had taken down the governing body of the galaxy.
Right.
So of course she kind of had to stay in politics.
Yeah.
So you're
pick up the pieces, put them back together.
It was totally her whether it was her job to do that or not, they make it clear in some of the novels that take place in between that she felt like it was her job to do that.
I think is a great example.
So
I love Bloodline.
So good.
And we talked about that. I mean, like some of the radical ideas in there, like Bloodline, I think it was Mon Mothma who wanted to disarm the galaxy at one point. So there's a lot of interesting things there, but
it's Star Wars politics done so well.
It really, that's the way to do. I thought that was a perfect balance between what we got in the original trilogy and like a little bit, from my opinion, heavy-handedness in the prequels.
Absolutely.
Because you start, and
it gets very heavy-handed in the prequels.
And George Lucas says, I made these for 12-year-olds, and you can look at the prequels and go, okay, but it starts with, there's a taxation of traders, and you're like, huh?
For 12-year-olds?
For 12-year-olds.
Because 12-year-olds are really concerned about taxes and tariffs.
And I get what he was doing there. I mean,
absolutely.
It's the look of the movies and the humor therein is for 12-year-olds.
But anyway, so then you're basically left with just Luke. And now we know, okay, there are still Jedi out there.
Yep.
And Luke really at this point, as far as we know, is the only one.
That's it.
So he has to be the figurehead for the entire new Jedi Order. There's no one helping him out.
Right.
So when the person who turns out to be sort of going to the dark side is his own nephew.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was totally understandable that he would have had a mental breakdown where he basically considered killing him.
Yeah, see, this has never bothered me.
Not at all.
I don't know why it has never bothered me. And the not my Luke. Luke would never do that. Luke would, and it's like
That's been 40 years since Return of the Jedi. He would have changed.
Anybody. And we're talking about space wizards here, okay?
Yeah.
But the story means so much to us. We've talked about it on Rule of Two, that Star Wars in itself is kind of like a campfire story that we all take to heart. We tell that story around other campfires and everybody. You bring them into this thing, and everybody has those campfire tales change, and they and they morph and they become something differently. So, but I look at the Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, and a lot of what I'm hearing, it's just like, I feel like they were really tied into the Legends novels where you see Luke Skywalker being frickin' powerful.
Yeah.
And they want to see that in live action. Don't get me wrong. I would have loved that.
Of course, but that isn't to say that that never happened.
Right. So what I just...
And he is really freaking powerful. I mean, that's what we see in that final battle scene with him and Kylo Ren.
The Force projection. This is what kills me. All right, this is what kills me because, one, a lot of people hate the toss.
Oh, I loved it.
I love it so much because it is so consistent with Return of the Jedi. He tosses his lightsaber away. At that moment, he looks up into the face of the enemy, the embodiment of the dark side, and says, "Oh, I get what you're trying to do.
Yup.
I'm throwing that away. I'm a Jedi, like my father before me.
Yes.
You've failed.
You're done. Yeah.
You're done. Because if I have this weapon still in my hand, I was about to do it. I was about to strike him down in anger, and you would have had yourself a new dark side apprentice.
Yep.
Nope, not
but I
doing
get it.
And so the idea then paying homage to Lucas and what he created with the prequels and then Return of the Jedi. And what Yoda said in Empire Strikes Back, your weapons, you do not need them. That is the Jedi way for defense, never for attack. And so he has this potential new pupil hand him over the lightsaber that, oh my God, this is yours. It's going to mean so much, isn't it? And it's like, for me, it was like first lesson.
Doesn't mean anything.
No, doesn't mean anything. So people lost their mind over that. And I would hypothesize that was the moment that people went, nope. And
they just tuned out for the rest of the movie. Yeah.
And then they go, and so, I challenge anybody to think, have you ever met somebody and you've known them for so long that they haven't changed or had dark moments or had moments of their own kind of oh God, what is a crisis of conscience?
Sure, and I think that's the thing for me is Luke Skywalker as a character. Yeah, of course I like him. He's the hero, but he was never my favorite character because he was, for the most part, just the really good hero. Like he was a good guy.
He followed the hero's journey, obviously.
Very, very much so.
We talk about that. Yeah, Luke Skywalker is my guy.
Yeah.
Like for so long. I mean, my parents told me at one point, they were like, "Yeah, we almost named you Luke," and I went, "Sorry."
What?
And I went to all the neighbors and I told them to start calling me Luke from now on. I'll always remember that memory. But he just did it for me. But if you look at the original trilogy, I do see this idea. I feel this. He is like Han Solo had the levels.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Leia had the levels.
Totally.
Luke was like...
Yeah, Lando Calrissian. So many
had
levels.
the levels,
yeah.
right? Luke was like, I'm going to become a father like a
Jedi
like my father before me. And then, I'm going to take my weapons. No, you don't need them. Oh, right, okay. But he was always doing good.
Always.
So the idea then that we get The Last Jedi and that he's down on his luck, I found fascinating.
I did too. Well, because I think it was such a realistic interpretation of a character who had been all about doing good.
Yeah.
And there was something that was beyond his control.
Yeah.
That, because he would have always just taught all of his Jedi pupils, Ben Solo especially, to be good, that they didn't need their weapons, et cetera, everything that he'd learned from Obi-Wan and from Yoda.
Right.
And then that Ben would be the one to kind of go dark side, especially him knowing his own family history and the fact that he is Darth Vader's kid.
That's where I go. It's he witnessing, oh my God, it's starting again.
It's history repeating itself.
It's history repeating himself. And so that weakness drives him to, no.
Not
and
gonna
then,
do it.
Oh shit, it happened. And so history did repeat itself. And the studio's like, you know what? I can't. What is that like? Because then the theme that I got from it, Broom Boy has the lightsaber, Hope, playing the Luke Skywalker figure, the legend of Luke Skywalker. He incited a galaxy.
He did.
By doing the most amazing, most powerful thing I've ever seen any Jedi do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I don't understand.
I mean,
you want Luke to pull down Star Destroyers with the Force?
Yeah.
Sure. Everybody did, right?
Sure,
Everybody
great,
was doing that.
great.
But then... No. We got something even better planned.
Even better.
He force projected himself across the galaxy.
Yep.
So it's weird to me. I just don't get it. But if it's not your Luke, that's your opinion.
Yeah, exactly. That's your opinion, and that's totally fine. And I think that what I would sort of implore people is to respect the opinions of those that do like Last Jedi, which is not to say that there aren't people that don't like Last Jedi that are totally respectful of my opinion. There absolutely are.
Oh, they're all over the place.
There's tons of them.
I've had conversations on Twitter where I'm like, this was great. I even called them out. I said, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that.
And I've had interesting conversations about it. But I think that, one of the things that the thing that incenses me is when people are like, oh, well, thank goodness J.J. Abrams is back to fix Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's like Star Wars isn't broken.
It's not.
It just didn't go the way that you personally felt that it was going to go. And you know what? It doesn't owe that to you.
No, it doesn't. Look, that was and it's so funny to me because it's like Rian Johnson, they did this to Luke, and I'm like, J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan wrote Luke Skywalker vanished and disappeared.
They sure did.
And then they handed off to Rian Johnson, and Rian Johnson, I don't know, but I can only imagine being a writer. Okay, if you're picking up the middle chapter, why did Luke go here?
Correct.
Is it like, and everybody's like looking for Jedi artifacts, but there's got to be a reason he didn't get involved.
No, to me, it was so, the whole thing of like Luke Skywalker vanished, to me that said, he's in hiding. It just. Like
Obi-Wan? Like Yoda?
Right.
Like something happened?
Where we picked up with Luke in Last Jedi felt so emotionally earned and appropriate to me.
There was something about it that just sucked me in, and I was like, and believe me, I'm sitting there watching this movie, the first parts of Last Jedi, and I'm like, this isn't my Luke. What happened?
Yeah.
And that's storytelling.
Yes, that's exactly. And for me, it was like all of a sudden it was, oh, Luke Skywalker's not just the boyish hero anymore. He's an older man now, and he's seen some shit, and he's been through it.
Yep.
And I wanted to know. I was so fascinated, and the fact that like he did have this dark moment just made him. It really humanized him. For me,
that's exactly. I've been trying to pinpoint it because it really made Luke, for me at least, it made me go, wait a minute, he is truly human.
Yeah,
and he has failure. Yoda shows up and tells him that.
The scene with him and Yoda in that movie is amazing.
I was crying.
Yeah,
I was crying because it's like Yoda shows up for another lesson.
Yes,
and goes, even the master. Yeah, you're still looking to the horizon, Luke.
Yes.
It's like you're still just not getting it that well. And he goes, oh my God. And I just inspired a new apprentice. Mm-hmm. Rey's going to go off and do her thing. And one last friggin' bow, I'm going to create that spark of hope in the galaxy. Yep. And that's why I think it was a great ending to set up episode 9.
It really was.
And I can't wait to get Force Ghost Luke because we will.
Oh, he'll totally be in it.
And I'm going to throw this at you because I've said that I've been banging on this drum. See you around, kid. I want Luke Skywalker haunting the fuck out of Kylo Ren. I want him appearing.
Oh my God.
I would love it if Kylo Ren is walking and he's doing his Kylo Ren thing, and Force Ghost Luke is there. Is like, what are you doing?
Yep.
He's like,
you gonna go?
You're really gonna do that?
Blow up some ships? You gonna go try to kill your mom?
Yeah, you're gonna kill your mom. Yeah, you already killed your father. You're really gonna go down this path. I could see that really working. I don't know what they have planned, but I could see it being very interesting and thinking that it could be the Force Ghost of Luke Skywalker that redeems Kylo Ren. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Kylo Ren
is he irredeemable?
I think so.
Yeah.
In a way that Vader was irredeemable. You know what I mean?
It's funny, but they all say he was redeemed because of what he did.
I don't know. He has that little bit of redemption, but that doesn't. But that was him. Okay, so now I'm going to bring it back to Sailor Moon for a second.
Okay, perfect.
So in the second story arc of Sailor Moon, they made a slight change in Sailor Moon Crystal where basically the character of Prince Demond, who's sort of one of the main villains, but he was really kind of being controlled. He was being puppeted by another villain.
Okay.
And in Crystal, in the manga, he just gets killed off. And then in Crystal, though, he like realizes that he's been puppeted and controlled. And for a second, it seems like, oh, he's going to like team up with the good guys. But instead, he's like, I have made this bed and now I got to sleep in it.
Yeah.
And there's no turning back.
I get it.
And that is absolutely what Vader could have done, but instead he made one good choice,
Yeah.
but that doesn't excuse everything else that happened. And I feel like Kylo Ren might go down a similar path. I do think that, if he makes it all the way through, which I don't suspect he will,
I don't suspect it either.
that he'll be off on a solo soul-searching journey.
Right, yeah. Did you ever get into the comics? It made me think about this because it's an interesting idea, but I know we're getting close to wrapping it up here, but your take. They did this Star Wars, it was the Dark Horse run of comics, Star Wars Infinities.
Oh, yes. Where they were like the what-ifs stories. Yeah.
So in the Empire Strikes Back, which was my favorite version of this, Luke actually dies from the Wampa attack.
Yeah.
Okay, so he dies. So it then becomes Leia going to Dagobah and becoming the
yes,
Jedi.
yes. I know exactly the one you're talking about.
And I can't remember if it was Return of the Jedi, Infinities one, or New Hope, but basically Vader is able to live and and he is redeemed, and at the very end of like the cast call of all the characters, before the credits, Vader walks in and he's in the Vader mask, but it's all white. And I'm like, cool. But when you think about Vader and you think about what he did, and he's walking into the Rebel Alliance and he's like, hey, everyone, how you doing? I'm Darth Vader here dressed in white. It's like, do you still go, yeah, dude,
it's
killed
bro, you
younglings.
blew up a planet.
Yeah, you blew up a planet. You killed a bunch of younglings, killed all the Jedi.
Yeah. No.
When it comes to Episode 9, TBD.
Who knows?
I'm very excited about that.
And I'm totally with you. What you were saying about where Last Jedi left off. And I think one of the things that Rian Johnson did that was really brilliant was definitely ending it in a place of this could go anywhere.
That's another thing I loved.
And to the point that, because at the point the movie came out, Carrie Fisher had already passed away. And of course, I'm thrilled that Leia is going to be in the movie.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But there was a part of me that went, Poe had such an interesting journey in this movie towards like truly learning to become a leader.
Oh, yeah.
That they could very easily have him be the leader of the rebellion now.
Yeah, absolutely, because The Last Jedi had two parallel master apprentice things going, right? The Skywalker twins were doing their training Rey, training Poe, and I saw that and I loved that.
I loved it too.
Well, I'm so glad I got to geek out with you on Star Wars because that was something that just popped up in my head that I wanted to talk to you about. Emma Fyffe, this has been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This was really fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I loved hearing your stuff on musical theater and everything. That was really great.
Yeah.
So before you go, please tell everybody out there where they can find you.
You can find me all over the internet wherever Emma Fyffes are sold at my name, Emma Fyffe, EMMAFYFFE. That's all F's as in Fred, no S's as in snake. I've shown up first to some real weird hotel reservations that have been made for me by other people over the phone.
Oh, God.
Where I show up and I'm like, hey, it's FYFFE. And they're like, no, we don't have anything. I'm like, look under S maybe? And then they're like, oh, yeah, there it is. There it is.
That's hysterical.
And obviously you can catch me on the Schmodown managing the team champions, the Shire Wolves. We got a bunch of great stuff coming up in the Spectacular, which is going to be like December 22nd or 23rd or something like that.
Yeah, something like
that. Check it out. It's going to be really epic. You better be studying, Riley.
That's why I'm ending it here. I'm going to be studying now for the rest of my life to take on these. It's going to be tough.
I'm also currently participating in a Call of Cthulhu campaign over on Hyper RPG. It is a show. It is called He Left It Dead. It's GM'd by Joe Starr.
Cool.
And we stream live at 7 o'clock p.m. every Wednesday night. So that's 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific time at twitch.tv/hyperrpg. I'm playing a real dumb, flapper girl, and it's really, really fun.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming. And everybody, please check out Emma Fyffe everywhere she just mentioned. And that'll do it for episode 25 of the Reilly Roundtable. I want to thank my executive producers of the Reilly Roundtable, Courtney Rose, Dylan Steiner, Kyle Gerbrandt, Zach Anderson, DJ Snacks, and Tamer Buddha. I want to thank you all. They are my Patreons. They have signed up for the Patreon page on the Reilly Roundtable. If you so desire to be a Patreon or even be a producer, get some extra content, extra shows, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Reilly Roundtable. Thank you as always for the support. And thank you everybody for tuning in for another episode of the Reilly Roundtable, which drops every Thursday on the One-on-One with Christian Harloff Podcast One feed. We'll see you next week for an all new episode. Bye bye.